أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. Today inshallah we are going to continue learning about different modes of stress, and the one that we are going to discuss in this lesson is what is called Laam-e-taakeed. Now, those who understand a bit of Urdu might think that the word taakeed is for instruction, and that would actually be true because in Urdu, taakeed is the word that we use for instruction or for instructing. Okay. However, that is not exactly the case when we talk about Laam-e-taakeed, because in Arabic, it is most appropriately used for stress. Okay, so here this Laam-e-taakeed doesn't have anything to do with instructing somebody or commanding somebody. Okay, that is a totally different domain and is in no way connected with stressing or emphasis. Okay, so here stress with Lam is going to be discussed. All right, and this was the first concept that I wanted to clear, that here we are only going to talk about stress and not about instruction or commanding. Okay, so Laam-e-taakeed simply means that it is the lam, as you can see here, that puts stress in a sentence. Okay, and we are going to see how it is achieved and how it is constructed and how you can spot it during your recitation. Okay, so that is going to be our basic focus in this lesson. Now, the second thing that I want you to remember and understand is that this Laam-e-taakeed does not induce any change in the i'rab. Okay, so by now you must be experts of i'rab. You must know what raf and nasab jar are, what their significance is, and and you must also know that there are some huruf that cause some changes in the i'rab. All right, for example, you have got harf nasab, harf jar, and all these things. They cause change in i'rab. However, Laam-e-taakeed does not cause any change in the i'rab. Okay, so this was the second thing that I wanted you to know. And the third and final thing that I want you to know is that this Laam-e-taakeed is actually different from this li that we studied earlier on in the topic of harf-jar. Okay, and that is because this letter lam has many usages. Sometimes it is with fatha and sometimes it has kasra, and it doesn't matter. There are many different flavors of lam, and inshallah we're going to discuss all the basic ones in this course. Okay, so this is the second type of lam that actually the third type of lam that we're going to study. The first one was Laam-e-taarif. It was part of al. All right, I hope you remember this Laam-e-taarif. Then the second lam was this one, and this was studied under the topic of haruf-jar, and it causes its ism to be in jar form. And this is the third one that we're going to study today, inshallah. Okay, so now with these concepts clear, let's proceed to our main lesson. And before doing so, of course, we are going to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us out and to make all these concepts easy for us to understand as well as to teach. So Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir wa tamim bil khair, amin ya rabbal alameen. All right, now I love showing this figure in all my lessons, and that is because it boosts up the morale. And the reason behind this is that, as you can see, there are 5 basic modes of stress, and out of those we have already done masadir, synonyms, patterns, stress words, comparatives, superlatives, and rafa pronouns. All right, so quite a lot actually. Now in this subheading, that is by using the add-ons, we are now going to begin Laam-e-taakeed, and then a subset of Laam-e-taakeed would be studied in the stressed present tense, which would be the next lesson, inshallah. Okay, so well, we are going to cover this portion in this lesson, inshallah. All right, so let's begin. Now, the familiar examples where you might have noticed this Laam-e-taakeed, however, you must have just you might just have gone past by it, and that is because you didn't quite identify it. Okay, you didn't exactly recognize it. So that's what I'm going to point out today. All right, so innal insana lafi khusrin. Forget about the next part. Simply focus on innal insana. You guys know what innal insana is. This is harf nasab. This is its ism. All right, and together they form harf nasab and its ism combo. And of course, this combo is followed by an appropriate auxiliary verb. This is something that you should be knowing by now, because I'm assuming that you guys have already watched lesson 3 in section B. All right, it is purely section B stuff. So innal insana is your harf nasab and its ism combo, and then you've got fi khusrin. This is jar majroor. All right, and as you can see, this is the jar, this is majroor ism, and we have got fi here, right? All right, what about this lam then? This lam is Laam-e-taakeed. Okay, great. What does it do? I'll tell you in a minute. All right, next familiar example. First of all, appreciate its presence and then focus on what exactly it is that it does in a sentence. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do first. That I'm going to help you appreciate its presence or acknowledge its presence, and then we are going to appreciate its presence. Okay, notice the difference between the two words. First you acknowledge and then you appreciate. All right, so Yasin wal Qur'anil Hakim. Now wal Qur'ani is your jar majroor because this wa is the wa of oath, and al-Qur'an of course is your majroor ism, and al-Qur'anil Hakimi is mawsuf sifa because they are identical in terms of the four properties of an ism. All right, once again, section B stuff, purely section B stuff, and I'm assuming that you guys know it by heart by now. All right, what's next? Innaka. Once again, harf nasab and its mansoob ism. Innaka. Forget about la. Then you've got minal mursalina. Now, once again, you've got jar majroor fragment. All right. Innaka. Forget about la, and then minal mursalin jar majroor fragment. All right. And now this is your Laam-e-taakeed. Okay. All right. What's next? Inna, ilaha. Now, once again, inna and ilaha. Harf nasab and its ism. Alright. Then ilaha kum. This thing here is muzaf muzafile, right? And then this entire thing is followed by an auxiliary verb, and then you've got wahidun. And with that wahidun, you've got this Laam-e-taakeed. Alright. So these are the common examples that almost all of us have come across during our recitation. Now, what do we observe? The first thing that we can observe is that it can be attached to all kinds of words, ism, harf, as well as fail. Now, I'll show you the examples of its attachment with fail in the next lesson, inshallah. However, you just take my word for it, a word on it for this fail thing, all right, that it does connect or it does attach with fail too. The examples that I've mentioned here show that Laam-e-taakeed gets attached with ism, for example here, okay, and then it can also attach with harf, as I presented in the first two examples, okay, lafi and then laminal. So this is what. Now, how do we construct it? This is the second step, all right, and then we're going to see what exactly it does in a sentence, okay. So how do we construct it? Okay, now the simple and a regular sentence is al-insanu fi khusrin. The mankind is in a loss. All right, a very simple regular sentence. The first step that I would like to do would be to add inna, and I've done that, and once I do that it becomes innal insana, right? And then we've got fi khusrin. Indeed, the mankind is in a loss. Now I want to add a further stress, so I add Laam-e-taakeed, so it becomes innal insana lafi khusrin. Okay, so indeed the mankind is most definitely in a huge loss. Okay, now uh, I'll tell you exactly what's happening here in terms of its importance and significance. Okay, so usually what happens is that we just go past it in a very casual manner. Okay, we just say it like this: indeed the mankind is most definitely in a huge loss, or simply indeed the mankind is in a huge loss. Now, does this sentence give the impression of any stress or urgency or importance? It doesn't exactly do that, does it? Because you see, one of the important points, one of the many important points of a language or of a speech is its tone. Okay, so what kind of tone is being used? You can say the same sentence in 10 different tones, and in each of those tones, the meaning and the essence of those words would differ, right? And this is exactly what's happening here. So, innal insana lafi khusrin. Over here, you are going to put a bit of stress in this Laam-e-taakeed, okay? So that it can give the impression of this thing. Okay, so innal insana lafi khusrin, this is how we recite it, or we usually read it. But if you understand what Laam-e-taakeed exactly is and what it does, what kind of importance and urgency and stress it imparts to the sentence, you are going to recite it a bit differently. You're going to say it as following, in the following way: innal insana lafi khusrin. Now, did you notice the subtle difference in the tone of la that I pronounced? I'm sure you did. So this is exactly how you are going to understand it. Okay, so whenever you're talking to anybody in your mother tongue, you do give different tones to your speech, don't you? Because whenever you need to stress on something, you give it a higher tone, or you press on that thing. So lafi khusrin, or you're so doomed. So what did I do here? I added stress on the word so. Okay, so that is exactly what this Laam-e-taakeed does. Okay, now the second thing that I want you guys to understand and remember is that, as I had told you guys before in one of my lessons, that it is absolutely impossible for anybody to adequately and entirely translate anything from one language to another, be it any language. If you want to translate anything from German to Russian, it would be one hell of a job, to be honest. And if you want to translate any poetry or any prose that is in French, and if you want to translate it into Russian, or I don't know, some any other language, all right, then it's going to be a very difficult task. And even if you have done, or even after completing this translation, if you try and read that translated version, or you show that translated version to a native French actually, then you are actually going to find that native French person pointing out various points where you must have missed out on a lot of essences or special tones and stuff that should have been there in the translated work, but as it was a translation, you couldn't exactly translate it or capture it completely. Okay, so this is something that happens in all the translations. If you want to translate Shakespeare into Urdu or Pashto, all right, it would be a nightmare, I'm sure. And if you want to translate Allama Iqbal into English, I'm sure that would be a very, very difficult task, not to say it could even be very terrible. Okay, so this is something that is a universal thing. Now, that was the first step of understanding. The second step that I want you guys to understand and or rather recall, is that the book in question of our discussion is not just a random book written by a random person. It is the Quran written, yeah, okay, that belongs or that has been written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how can that be exactly translated from one language to another? Point one. And how can those uh, totally wonderful words and all those themes and all those in although all that essence, how could that essence be completely captured in any translated version? And this is my question to everybody, because that if anybody on the face of this earth can claim that he has adequately, appropriately, and with 100% entirety translated and captured all the important things that must be captured while translating an ayah from the Quran, from Arabic to any other language, all right, say English or Urdu or whatever, then I'm going to simply denounce that claim, okay? Because that is impossible. Nobody can do that, because first of all, it's the language thing, and secondly, it's Quran we are talking about, okay? So nobody can claim to do that, okay? And that is the reason we should have some basic understanding of this language, so that we can appreciate when such things need to be understood and felt, because most of these things do not exactly get captured, okay? No matter who is translating it, no matter what medium is being used for the translation, these basic things don't get captured appropriately. They might get translated appropriately or near appropriately, but there's a difference between translation and capturing the essence and the impact of what is meant to be. Okay, so I hope that I did not, overdo it. But I had to make this point very clear, because there are going to be some things that you can only feel and understand in your head, but not be able to explain it very clearly. And that is very normal. That is quite normal, and that is something that is meant to be. Okay, because first of all, it's a language restriction, and then it is the Quran Pak that we're talking about. Okay, so understand and feel these things. Don't worry about words. Words do not matter in all situations. Okay, so let's do it again. Innal insana lafi khusrin. Indeed, the mankind is most definitely in a huge loss. Once again, not at all uh, word to word or an actual or appropriate or 100% translation, but it is something that shows you the urgency and the degree of stress that needs to be present while you understand the impact of this Laam-e-taakeed. Okay, so that's why we've got most definitely here. Okay, or you could also understand it as indeed the mankind is so in a huge loss. That is how it can be understood. Okay, so this is the impact of Laam-e-taakeed. All right, now a couple of examples and then we'll be done. All right, so our first example is going to be with a regular sentence, and then we're going to convert it into the sentence with stress via this thing, Laam-e-taakeed. So al-insanu li rabbihi kanudun. Now once again, if you guys have watched the third lesson of section C, you guys must have noticed that the jar majroor fragment is right here in the middle. In a regular simple sentence that has no stress at all, the jar majroor fragment is supposed to be at the end. Okay, but forget about that point over here. Let's suppose that we have already placed this jar majroor over here in the beginning, in the middle, and this khabar is right here. Okay, so al insanu li rabbihi kanudun. Kanudun means ungrateful. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to add inna, and with that inna is going to become innal insana. All right, li rabbi is jar majroor and rabbihi is muzaf muzaf ilayh, right? Li rabbihi Kanudun would be the Laam-e-taakeed less word, okay? However, when I add the Laam-e-taakeed with Kanud, then it adds a lot of stress that can only be felt and understood. It just cannot be put into words, okay? So the proposed translation that I have written here is, indeed, the mankind towards his Rabb is extremely ungrateful. That is how you're going to understand it. Okay, that is how it's meant to. That is what the Laam-e-taakeed does. Okay, so, or similarly, indeed, the mankind towards his Rabb is so ungrateful. That is how it is supposed to be understood. Okay, all right. Now, this is the last page. We're going to discuss these examples and then we'll wind it up. So the first one is وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. Now, I've got laqad here. What does laqad, or how do we get laqad? We simply add this la with qad, and we have already completed qad. Alright, so I'm not going to stress on it again or revise it again, because I already have done a complete lesson on qad, and well, you guys can go back and watch that lesson, of course. Okay, so وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ, and then the ayah goes on. And how are you going to understand this portion of the ayah? That, and we have so made Quran easy for the remembrance. We have so made it easy. All right, so can you feel it? Right? I mean, even if I were to translate this sentence as the sentence that I've just said in English, that you, or that we have so made it easy. If I were to translate it in some other language, I am sure that the impact and the essence of this so would not be captured, unless you add a lot of other words and, you know, other augmentation. All right, so other help of other things, of other words. So unless you do that, you will not be able to capture it. All right, similarly, laqad has two kinds of stresses on it. So qad itself has stress, and then on top of that you've got Laam-e-taakeed as well, so it becomes laqad, and it intensifies the stress that can only be understood and felt. Okay, but I have proposed the translation that, and we have most definitely made the Quran easy for remembrance. Okay, I hope this helps. All right, next, but once again, it doesn't really matter if you can put these things in words. If you can feel whatever is written in Arabic, then trust me, you are on the right track. Okay, because in the end, we're not here to learn and write translations of the Quran, but we're not here to do that. We are here to start and feel a connection with the Quran. That is our aim. All right, the next one is Inna Rabbi Lasami'ud Dua. Now, notice how I put a little bit of stress in this Laam-e-taakeed. I hope you did. Okay, so indeed, my Rabb is most definitely the continuous listener of the calls or prayer. All right. Now, this is a pattern of fa'ilun that we have already done in Ismu Balagha, right? And together it forms Muzaf Muzaf ilayh with Sami'ud Dua. Alright. Now here we have our Laam-e-taakeed, La Sami'ud Dua. Alright, so I don't think I need to translate it or explain it further, because I hope that you guys now understand and that you guys can now appreciate what this Laam-e-taakeed does and what it does in a sentence. Okay. Next, we've got this one. Walal akhiratu khairul laka min al-ula. Alright, so, or simply how you're going to feel it to understand it, that walal akhiratu khairul laka min al-ula. That indeed, most definitely, it is the hereafter that is better for you than what came before. And by this, it is meant this world. Okay? So, ula means the one that came before. Okay, the former ones. So indeed, most definitely, it is the akhirah, the hereafter, that is better for you. Now, why did I use the word better for khairun? That is because the word min is present right after it. Okay, so I hope you guys have studied and well, that you guys have watched and studied and remembered the comparatives and how they are different from superlatives. Okay, so that's all about it. So I hope that these examples are clear and that now the examples that I presented here are also clear. Okay, so innal insana lafi khusrin, like the human race, the mankind is so in a huge loss. Okay, then innaka laminal mursalin, that indeed you are so most definitely among the ones who have been sent. Okay, then inna ilahakum lawahidun, indeed your ilah, your God, your Rabb is most definitely wahid, one. Okay, so once again, you can only understand it, and how do you know that you understand it? Well, I just told you what it does and what kind of templates should run into your mind. Okay, so I hope that it's clear. Inshallah, next lesson would deal with stressed present tense. All right, so this would be once again about Laam-e-taakeed and understanding and feeling these things rather than relying on the translations and words for capturing of the complete impact and essence. So with that, I'm going to take your leave. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'anil Hakim. Allah Hafiz.